Woman Who Chat is sponsored by Grow Radio. Grow Radio is an online radio station dedicated to bringing you a different podcast on the hour, every hour. I'm proud that Woman Who Chat is played on Grow Radio every Tuesday at 3 p.m. and Friday at 8 a.m. and to be a part of their podcasting community. If you want to listen to the station, explore their shows, check out many of the blogs to improve your podcasting skills, or get your podcast onto Grow Radio, head over to growradio.uk today. Welcome to Woman Who Chat, and today I'm chatting with Nicole Ratcliffe of Baby to Sleep. Hello, Nicole.
Hi, Sandra. Thanks for having me.
Now, I should say the award-winning Nicole Ratcliffe, and we'll come on to talk about the awards a little bit later. But first of all, tell everybody what you do.
So, I do a mixture of things, to be fair. I support parents directly with their children who struggle with sleep. But most recently, I created the workplace sleep coach. So I go into businesses and I get businesses to start supporting their parents in work and their carers who are struggling with sleep, and start to improve sleep for everybody, basically, make things a bit better.
Now, sleep's a big thing. It's a big thing for everybody, but it's a big thing for me. I need my 8 hours every night. I know I need that time. I'm a very deep sleeper and I don't wake up. Nothing wakes me. In fact, when I had my babies when they were little, I didn't wake up. I didn't hear them. So some of that's due to my deafness now, I know, but other things are I sleep through thunderstorms. I've slept through a hurricane on a holiday. So I am a solid sleeper, and I'm so grateful for that, because when my mum was ill and when I was caring for her, she was waking me all night every 15 minutes. And by day 4, I couldn't function. And I can imagine that if you've got a child who doesn't sleep, and that sleep deprivation, and you're working family, my son's the same, he went through terrible sleep deprivation, but he still had to go out to work, even though his wife was on maternity leave. So talk us through your journey. Talk us through how this came about.
So I had my eldest little girl back in 2016, and I thought I had it sussed. I was like, yeah, I've done all the antenatal classes, I've done the NCT classes. I'm so maternal. This is exactly what I was born to do. And then I went into labour, and basically anything that I thought I knew went out the window. And we had an emergency C-section, we had birth trauma, we had troubles with breastfeeding. But then the big thing that just continued for ongoing was the fact she just didn't sleep. And by the time we got to 4 months in, me and my husband were in marriage counselling. Things were that bad because we just weren't sleeping. And my mum's there saying, I went to stay with my mum when she was 4 weeks old, and she's going, is this normal? I went, apparently so. My mum went, this just doesn't seem normal. And I was like, well, apparently that's what they do. Apparently baby's just cluster feed and she's just attached to me all the time. And I couldn't put her down. So she wasn't sleeping, I wasn't sleeping, and everything was hard. So by the time she got to about 8.5 months, we'd done all the, speaking to the health visitors, we'd done the controlled crying, or as the health visitors call it, Solihull technique, which is basically controlled crying. We'd done all these things and nothing had worked. So we hired a sleep consultant, and it changed my view on everything. And me and my husband were able to start talking again. We had our evenings back, and I no longer wanted to kill him. Do you know what I mean? Because it was like we had time to restart building our relationship because we had sleep. Now, it wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but what it did do is it fired up a passion in me to say, well, hang on a minute. If it's that simple, and I look at all the stuff that I've just been through, why is everybody else going through this? Why is this not more common knowledge? Why are we not educating people better? So I wanted to start studying, but in that time I went back to work on a part-time basis, and I went back in a field sales role, which was not great because I still wasn't sleeping. And as you know, when they go to nursery, things change. And even if they were sleeping, they're suddenly not sleeping because their patterns change. So then she's not sleeping and I'm driving on the road, and work wasn't overly accommodating to it. To sign a contract that said you won't drive tired. okay. It said in there there's 20 work-related road traffic accidents every single week in the UK, but sign this contract that says you won't drive tired. But yet there was no other jobs for me, do you know what I mean, that took me off the road. And it was horrific. And I was falling asleep on the motorway. I was falling asleep in between appointments. But there's nothing you can do. You have to go to work. You have to pay the bills. And I was fortunate that redundancy came up, which most people wouldn't think that as a fortunate event. But for me, it meant I had enough money to start studying sleep. And I started my own business. And I went, this is what I'm going to do. And as time's gone on over the years, I've realized that helping one person at a time isn't enough. You're not going to get there with your social media and everything else. You actually need to go in and say, do you know what? The whole system is broken and I need to fix it from the root. And one of the places we can do that, we're not going to get government on side for a long time, but one of the places I can do something is into the workplace and say, do you know what? These people are coming back to work. They're not safe to do their jobs. I know this because I've lived it. You know, I know they're not safe. And we've got to change the way that we get businesses to understand sleep, the lack of it, and understand that they can play a part in making things better and safer. And I think the big thing that really struck it last year for me was when the article came out in The Guardian saying that a blood test had been developed in Australia to detect for tiredness. And as tired driving is illegal, and they were also talking about both the driver and the employer being prosecuted, should this test show that somebody is driving excessively tired, I went, that's where we can get employers to start listening. This is how we have to start doing things. We have to start making changes because everybody's then at risk of prosecution. Yeah, so it's a big thing. So it's been my journey. It's been up and down, lots of changes, lots of developments, but I still work with parents, I still work with businesses, and I still have all my online stuff as well. So there's loads going on.
And you actually wrote a report, didn't you, on this?
We did, yes. So we did some studies, we did some research last year as to the called Breaking the Silence, revealing the truth about parenting in the workplace. And I could never have imagined how big the problem was. I knew it was big because I knew it, you know, I'd experienced it. But until everybody starts telling their story, you can't possibly imagine how big this problem is. And one of the things that really stood out to me was that 62% of the parents that were surveyed said that their baby or child was not sleeping well enough for them to function safely in their job, not do it well, just safely,
Yeah.
till at least 18 months. 22% said 3 years plus. And you go, hang on a minute, you've got dads going back to work after 2 weeks paternity, mum's going back to work 6, 9, 12 months. Well, hang on a minute, how long have we got here where these parents are not safe to do their job? Not good at it, not productive, not doing well in their performance, but not safe. That's huge. And a lot comes from, you know, oh, well, it's not on the HR drop down list of reasons to be off sick, is it? Being tired. And it's like, yeah, you don't get it. It's not that you're tired, you are chronically sleep deprived. And when you are sleep deprived, it's not just a case of, you know, oh, you're tired. Your mental health suffers, your physical health suffers, and everything impacts on everything else. Your ability to regulate your emotions is just virtually non existent. And if your child isn't sleeping and you're trying to work and your pressures are up, and we've got the cost of living crisis, everything combined, your stress levels are up here. And you've got no ability to regulate your emotions, suddenly you've got nothing in your tank. There is nothing left to give. And it's heartbreaking. And so, yeah, so much has got to change. But that report is so eye-opening. I would recommend everybody read it.
Yeah. And I look back to that period of time when I was sleep deprived. I couldn't function. In fact, I wasn't eating properly because my body was out of sync. I was catnapping during the day. I was dangerous to drive. All those things that you said, it's just, and had that continue, you can understand why sleep deprivation was a torture during the World War. You can understand why they use that, because it just knocks you completely off kilter. And, I look back, I was very spoilt with my first child in that he slept through the night after 3 weeks. Probably because I wasn't getting up, I couldn't hear him. Second child, now I always say if I had my second child first, I wouldn't have had the first. He didn't sleep. And, he was a nocturnal baby. He would sleep in the day and he'd be awake all night. But we just had to retrain him. And I think at the time, my ex-husband was very good with him during that early stages, but he got into a pattern. He got into a pattern of sleeping. So I was very lucky. It wasn't until recently with a sleepless parent that I experienced that deprivation. And I can really understand, and I've got an empathy there, what that does to a person. You cannot function, you cannot decision make, you cannot, you know, you just simply can't function. And
No,
I
no,
would imagine that if anybody's got that up to 3 years in their world, they just lose, well, they lose their whole identity, but they're at risk of losing their job as well.
absolutely. And this is the bit that's quite frightening because everybody presumes by a certain point babies should be able to sleep through the night. And yes, okay, they can if we do the right things. And there's a huge part of it where the education's missing. The education of actually understanding the evidence behind sleep, understanding what babies need, how they sleep, the reasons that they nap, where their naps sit, to reflect what their body needs and their brain needs. So that education is lacking. And this is what's leading a lot to 3, 4, 5-year-olds still not sleeping. And what we don't seem to think though is when a baby turns 2, we naturally think they must be sleeping great. You're back at work, everything's fine. Actually, when they turn 2, sleep can take a real back step because they go through such a huge development with their speech and language, their growth, their fine motor skills, they're testing their independent spirit. I mean, all these things, they're realizing they've got control, they've got big emotions, that they can't communicate, they don't understand what they are, they just feel them, and everything comes out in a different way. And again, there is no education to kind of get you to that point. Well, hang on a minute, what just changed? But by this time, you've probably been back in work a good year and
Yeah.
everyone's expecting that everything is fine. But suddenly you are then hit with this, I'm getting 2 hours sleep. What's going on? Hang on, I don't actually know how to deal with this. And I can't tell my boss because, well, my baby's 2 now. They're a child, you know what I mean? And I've not had this before, and I'm supposed to be able to just cope with it. There must be something wrong with me. And this is the thing, if we can start to understand that actually coming up to that 2 year point is a huge factor in sleep deprivation and people struggling, not just with sleep, but with their child's pushbacks and their boundary testing. And actually, the fact we do have a huge lack of education around it, then we can start hopefully breaking some of the stigma down. But just, I want to touch on something that you said earlier and about the thing with sleep. We all know that we need 4 things to survive, literally, to actually exist. We need oxygen, we need water, we need food, and we need sleep. So
Yeah.
why, and we kind of go, well, if we're thirsty, we have a drink. If we're hungry, we eat. We can't help but breathe. But when it comes to sleep, because so much of our day is taken up by everybody else, we just have this thing where we go, oh, just one more episode on Netflix. And we don't actually realize the importance of maybe that extra half hour or that extra hour's sleep and what that does, because you cannot physically survive if you don't sleep. But we don't take it seriously.
I went through a period of time, and I think if I'm worried about something, it affects my sleep. And I went through a period of time where I was waking up at 1, 2 in the morning. Now, once I wake up, I'm awake. There's no getting back to sleep. So when I was being constantly interrupted, that was it. My sleep pattern was shot. But I actually went to see a PT many years ago. And I said, look, I know I need 8 hours, but I keep waking up in the night. And once I'm awake, I can't get back to sleep. And he almost said, you need to sleep train yourself. He said, have an evening routine, have the wind down. I mean, obviously babies are different. You have to educate them in a different way. But I did that and I stopped eating after a certain time. I stopped looking at my phone after a certain time. I stopped TV after a certain time. I moved the TV out of the room and I trained myself to go to sleep at 10 o'clock at night. And I trained myself to wake up automatically at 6 in the morning. Now I loosely stick to that now, but I find if I don't, I've set an alarm on my phone that if I haven't gone to bed by 10:30, I need to do it pronto. And I get into bed and I turn the light out and I go straight to sleep. And I wake up around just before 6 o'clock in the morning and then I see my alarm go off. It took a while to do it, but I was able to do that. And I imagine that there are routines that you can do with babies. I mean, not every baby, because every baby is different, but I
They are.
imagine that there are things that you can put in place. And I'm assuming years ago there was conflicting reports, sleep your baby wrapped in a bundle, sleep your baby not wrapped in a bundle, sleep your baby on the front, sleep your baby on the back, sleep your baby. It was just so conflicting that you just threw the baby in the cot and thought, what will be. But what can parents do? I mean, you have obviously got a big support network and information. So what can parents do if somebody is, male or female, mum or dad, going through this awful time right now? They're sleep deprived, they can't think straight, they're worried about losing their job. Where should they go?
Oh, right. Well, if you want, this is the thing. There's a lot of cost factors involved with things because the NHS isn't, they're not able to actually offer this kind of help. That's one of the biggest problems. Something I actually want to change. Again, part of my big mission. But they can speak to the GP, they can speak to the health visitor because there are things that they can do. One of the things when you're talking about 2, 3 years old to fix sleep, a lot of that comes to fix with sorting the daytime stuff out, like laying the behavioral foundations, the boundaries. So there are things that can be done, and it's important that you actually speak to your doctor if you are struggling. That's your first point of call. Make sure that there's nothing medical that's causing the actual issues. Because obviously, if there is something medical going on, we need to fix that first. There's no point going and paying somebody to help you with your child's sleep if they've got tongue tie and it's not being rectified, or they've got some kind of sleep apnea, or they've got allergies, and these are the triggers. So you need to make sure you've covered all your bases first. Then you've got options where you could speak to sleep consultants. Now, the sleep industry is an unregulated industry, so you've got to be very careful who you're speaking to. You make sure that they have done their training, where they ask them where they've actually done it as well, because you get sleep consultants training sleep consultants, and they might have actually not really been doing it that long. So again, you've got to make sure you as a parent are doing your due diligence and that you are making sure that whoever you are going to work with really knows their stuff, and will work to what you need as a family, because there isn't a one size fits all because every baby's different. You cannot have, and I say this all the time to people, I have no idea what plan I'm going to give to a family till I'm already on the conversation. I've already done my sleep diary with them. I've already gone through all the analysis. I've gone through the assessment forms. I've done all of that. But I still don't know because at the end of the day, a plan can only be created when you're having that conversation and you can really understand what that parent is needing. So it's really important that you do your checks and you make sure that somebody is listening to you. So there's one-to-one support. So there are sleep consultants out there, but there are also online support as well. So I offer online courses from pregnancy because again, that's a huge factor because the education is missing from before the baby even arrives. So I offer from pregnancy right through to children turning 6 years old, and it's just all education. That's the big thing. It's all education, evidence based information to help you on that journey, and that makes it much more cost effective for people. Because
Mm.
again, working with somebody on a one to one basis, that becomes a luxury. I say a luxury, it could be desperation. I whacked it on a credit card because we were so desperate. But not everybody's in that position where they can do that. So it's finding what works for you. But there is help out there. But always start with your doctor first and make sure that there's nothing medical going on. But speak to your boss, speak to your HR department. If you are worried, the biggest thing is from so many of us think, oh, they're going to fire me. I'm going to lose my job. But actually, it costs about between 15 and 30,000 pounds on average to replace you in a business.
Mm.
That's a huge cost. So if you think about it like this, they don't want to lose you. So if you go to your manager or to your HR department and say, do you know what? I'm really struggling. I'm really struggling with lack of sleep. Is there anything that you have got that you can offer to support me on my situation? Because then you can shout me in as well. Because that's all the stuff I do there. The group training, the online stuff, everything. But there is something at every stage. You've just got to ask for help.
And I think it's great that the way you start that education during pregnancy, because that's when you're building the nest. That's when you're doing all your prep. So if you've got that information ahead of time, all right, yeah, having the baby and everything goes out the window more often than not, but having that knowledge, oh, the baby isn't sleeping, right, I need to go to the doctor. The baby isn't sleeping, oh, maybe I haven't got a blackout blind. It's the middle of summer, the daylight's way. All those little things, the room's too hot, the room's too cold. You can eliminate with that education. But I love the way you take it up to 6 years, because you're going through the terrible twos, you're going through the toilet training, you're going through first day at nursery, first day at school, all that, right? So once they're 6, they are really established in school. They've been there a year, maybe 18 months. They're now starting their daily routines. Whereas that whole journey, what somebody once told me, a child learns more in the first 5 years than any point in their life. That they're learning to walk, they're learning to talk, they're learning to communicate, they're learning to do all these things. It's a pretty traumatic time for a child.
Massive. And can you imagine being a youngster that has got these big feelings, but yet doesn't have the knowledge to understand what that feeling is, this connection, but not having the vocabulary to be able to verbalize it?
Yeah, yeah,
That's how we end up with so many tantrums and things and fights at bedtime. Because it's funny because we naturally don't talk to our children the way that they need us to do it. And I'll explain what I mean. How many times when you've been sat at the dinner table would you say to your child, eat properly?
yeah,
Actually, what does properly mean? And we don't think that actually we need to break this down and be so specific
yeah.
that you want them to sit their bum on the chair and put their fork in their hand and use their fork to eat and put the food in the mouth. We don't think that we have to be that specific, but actually we do. They need things broken down to tell them exactly what it is that they need to do. So they do it. And when we say just eat properly, well, I don't know. What's that? Yeah, it makes it difficult. And we become frustrated as parents because we think they're not listening. No, they just don't understand because we've not communicated it right. And that's the bit where I say it's not the children that are the problem, the education for the parents.
Yeah. And I suppose if the parents are feeling yuck with sleep deprivation, the baby's got sleep deprivation as well, because they're the ones not sleeping. So they don't understand and they're confused and they're expressing it in the only way they know, and that's to scream loudly.
Yeah, but we do that as parents. And this is the thing. There's a lot I'm doing with moment with like parental rage and things, because again, it's a really taboo subject that people are really frightened to talk about because they go, oh gosh, no, I can't be angry at my beautiful little child. But actually, if you're not sleeping and you can't regulate your emotions, we have this thing where we say, oh, but these children, they can't regulate their emotions yet. Yeah, we know that. But actually, as an adult, you're not sleeping. So you're not getting a chance to regulate your emotions. And we wonder why, as parents, we suddenly go, I can't do this anymore. Just go to sleep. And everybody I speak to goes, not just me. I'm like, no, it's not just you. It's nearly every single parent that's struggling because our children know how to press these buttons that we don't even know exist. And
Yeah.
even if you're not sleep deprived, it's really hard to deal with a child in that situation. To throw in sleep deprivation on top, oh, wow, where do you go with that? But again, nobody talks about it. And then we get the thing where the government go, we're going to bring in a smacking ban. Well, hang on a minute, where's the education to support the parents before you do that? Why are you going to make them a criminal for maybe losing it because they're absolutely on, they've tapped the kid's bum or something. Do you know what I mean? Because they've absolutely got nothing left and they don't know what to do. And that's what their parents did to them. And that shut them up when they were a kid. And that's the only place they can go back to in that, really stressed out moment. Why are we going to criminalize that person and stop them asking for help rather than saying, do you know what? We haven't really done a very good job here, have we? Maybe we should actually fix the system. Maybe we should start educating parents before we start making them criminals. Let's actually do something that helps them and gives them tools to navigate this really tricky journey, so they know that if they need help, this is where they can get it from without punishment, without stigma, before it gets to the point where they might smack their child's bum and we make them a criminal. And once we've actually laid some really good foundations, then let's make it a criminal act. But up until then, I don't think that's something that we can really do either, because we are just a broken system.
And I can tell that you're so passionate about this. You entered the Woman Who Achieves Awards, and I don't know why you entered. I don't judge the awards, and I can tell from your passion about this what blew the judges away. I really can, because you are so determined to make a change here. And I think I've gathered from your entry that your idea would be is that companies would provide this education to their staff. So as soon as somebody says, I'm pregnant, hands in their MAP 1B or whatever it is, that they get this education right at that point. And I think the employers have got a responsibility at this point to look after, as they would with any mental health program, employee assistance program, to have this in the workplace. Not everybody's going to have children, but for the ones that are, I think it's just something else that they could do. So coming on to the awards, because we're running out of time, what made you enter?
I just felt I should. I don't know. I think I did it the night before as well.
one of my 50% that do it in the last 48 hours.
It's like, should I not? Or do you know what? If you don't, you'll never know. And what it was, last year, my coach for the NatWest Accelerator made me enter the Deprived Vision Awards. Well, and again, that was a night before jobby as well. And it was the night before, and I just heard my coach going, you've got to do that. And I thought, she's going to kill me if I don't. And I entered not thinking anything of it. And I got through to the final. And it was that point where I started going, hang on a minute, am I actually doing something that people are listening to? And then it came to yours and I saw it. And I hadn't really done anything with awards since then. And I thought, you know what, this sounds absolutely incredible. I'm just going to throw my hat in the ring and see what happens. And then that happened and I went, people are listening. It is a thing. People are starting to listen to what I'm doing, and it's valuable. Yeah, and I've just got to start trusting that people will start to hear my voice and I will start making those changes.
Yeah, and I always say to people, it's about maximising the journey, and you've had some recent PR as well, which is great. And I really hope that people see that, by winning this award, I hope it helps you on that journey and gives you some credibility and also some publicity in the fact that you've got a very good message, a very strong message, and you simply want to make change, not because for change's sake, because you genuinely want to help people. And that's a fantastic thing to see.
Absolutely. I just think I can't stand the idea that my girls could go through what I went through. Yeah. I could fix that for them. Yeah. And the way I fix that for them is to fix it for everybody else.
That's fantastic, Nicole. Sadly, we have run out of time. We will share all your contact details. And I think you've shared really some advice for people. If you're suffering and something's not right, the first place to go is their GP.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been great chatting to you. That's Nicole Ratcliffe from Baby to Sleep. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Woman Who Chat podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Join me next week for more inspiration, learning and top tips. In the meantime, visit womanwho.co.uk to find out how you can start your Woman Who journey or even feature on a future podcast. You can also join the Woman Who Achieves community on Facebook. The link is in the show notes. There, you'll get the opportunity to network, find support and make new connections with over 1,000 women in business. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss next week's podcast. And if there are any topics you would like to hear, just get in touch with me, your host, Sandra Garlick.